Shut your mouth. Who do you think you are, talking to my mother like that? My husband roared, striking me across the face with all his strength. His mother smirked with satisfaction. But what happened 15 minutes later completely blindsided him. Before we continue, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments what you think about situations like this. Thank you, and now, please enjoy the story. The silence in our small two-bedroom apartment in the Chicago suburb of Willow Creek was precious and fragile, like thin ice on a puddle in early spring. It was woven from the soft, measured breathing of a tiny nose in the crib, the quiet ticking of the wall clock, and the almost imperceptible hum of the refrigerator. Kira Hayes, a young black woman of 28, sat perched on the edge of the sofa, afraid to move and shatter the delicate harmony. Her son Micah was exactly 6 months old. For the past half-year, her life had become an endless cycle of sleepless nights, constant feedings, and one overwhelming feeling of tenderness so sharp it sometimes brought her to tears. She looked down at her hands. Gone was the perfect manicure she once took pride in, replaced by short, trimmed nails and dry, cracked skin. Her career as a graphic designer felt like a distant memory from another lifetime, before maternity leave, before Micah. Now her main project was this small, squishy bundle that smelled of milk and contentment. The bedroom door creaked open quietly. Her husband Donovan stood in the doorway, tall, fit, impeccably dressed in a perfectly pressed shirt. He looked like a visitor from that other world, the world of offices, meetings, and deadlines. "Is he asleep?" he whispered, tiptoeing toward the crib. Hum. Kira nodded, rising to meet him. "Just got him down. He was fussy for a whole hour." Donovan gently kissed the top of his wife's head. He smelled of expensive cologne and coffee, scents that always brought to mind reliability, success, and the Donovan she'd fallen in love with 2 years ago at a corporate party. He'd been a promising department head at a large tech company, she, a humble designer. Their romance had been fast and beautiful. "You look exhausted," he said, studying her face with concern. "Maybe you should visit your folks this weekend. Get some rest, catch up on sleep. I can handle Micah myself." "Thank you, but not right now." Kira smiled gratefully. "Besides, your mother just arrived to help out." At the mention of his mother, a flicker of relief crossed Donovan's face. Veronica, his mother, had arrived a week ago from a neighboring state with the firm intention of whipping the young family into shape. She was an energetic, domineering woman, one of those people who always knew best. Her help mostly consisted of criticism and uninvited advice. Kira was either burping the baby wrong, or her stew wasn't rich enough, or she wasn't dusting the corners with sufficient diligence. "Speaking of Mom," Donovan lowered his voice, "she asked me to tell you she's running low on her favorite instant coffee, the kind in the glass jar. Can you pick some up when you go out with the stroller?" Kira nodded. Over the past week, she'd learned all of her mother-in-law's culinary preferences by heart. A specific brand of tea, only that particular yogurt dessert, bread from one specific bakery. Veronica tolerated no compromises. She had entered their lives like the lady of the manor, and Kira, worn down by sleepless nights, couldn't find the strength to argue. She just wanted peace and quiet. That evening, as the three of them sat in the kitchen, her mother-in-law launched into her favorite monologue once again. "I look at you young people, and I'm just baffled," she began, stirring sugar into her cup. "Nothing you do is right. A house with a mortgage, the wife not working because of maternity leave, and the baby crying all the time. I raised my Donnie alone, his father left us early, and I worked 2 jobs. Yet the house was always spotless, and my son was well-fed and cared for." Kira silently poked at her cold side dish with a fork. She'd heard this story at least 5 times already. Donovan sat glued to his phone, pretending not to hear. He always did that when his mother started her monologues. "Don't pay attention to her," he would say later. "She's just worried about us." "And you, sweetie, you've really let yourself go," Veronica continued, scrutinizing her daughter-in-law from head to toe. Thin, pale, bags under your eyes. Is that the kind of wife men want? A man needs a muse, a beauty, not an exhausted homemaker. Kira's stomach clenched with hurt. She was sleeping only 4 hours a night. Every ounce of her time and energy went to Micah. She wanted to scream that she didn't have a single minute for herself, that she dreamed of going to a salon or just lying in the bathtub for more than 10 minutes. But she stayed silent. Any word she spoke would be seen as talking back, as disrespecting her elders. Mom, come on. Why are you starting? Donovan drawled lazily without looking up from his screen. Kira's a new mom. It's normal for her to be tired. Normal. Veronica exploded. When I had you, I was back at work within a week. And she's been home for 6 months and complains about being tired. She stood up from the table, signaling the end of the conversation. Walking past Kira, she paused and patronizingly patted her shoulder. It's all right, girl. I'll teach you how to be a good wife and mother. The main thing is to listen to your elders. Veronica headed toward the patio door. A second later, the sharp, acrid stench of tobacco smoke wafted through the partially opened kitchen door. Her mother-in-law smoked like a chimney, a pack a day. Kira had always known this, but it hadn't mattered before. Now, with her tiny son sleeping in the next room, the smell seemed poisonous. She looked at Donovan. He continued scrolling through his news feed, completely oblivious to the smoke slowly infiltrating the kitchen. Kira stood up and firmly closed the patio door. A dull, inexplicable anxiety was rising inside her. She felt that with her mother-in-law's arrival, her small, cozy world had begun to crack, and the smell of tobacco was only the first faint warning of the approaching storm. Late that evening, when her mother-in-law had gone to sleep in the guest room and Donovan was showering, Kira sat by Micah's crib, gazing at his serene face. He made soft sucking sounds in his sleep, scrunching up his nose in a funny way. She ran her finger over his silky cheek. This little person was her entire universe, her purpose. And for him, she was ready for anything, even enduring a bossy mother-in-law. But where was the line where patience turned into betrayal of her own child? She recalled Donovan's words when he'd proposed, "We'll be a team, Kira, always together." Where was that team now? Why couldn't he see how his mother was slowly but surely tearing their family apart? The sound of water running came from the bathroom. Kira got up and walked to the window. The city night glowed with millions of lights. Somewhere out there, life was bustling, full of events, meetings, and joy. But her life had narrowed to the dimensions of this apartment, to the perimeter of the baby's crib. And in this small world, an enemy had appeared, poisoning the air both literally and figuratively. She walked to the hallway and opened her mother-in-law's suitcase, which was sitting there, just to check. At the very bottom, beneath a wallet and a keyring, lay a pack of thin cigarettes and a lighter. Kira sighed. This was going to be difficult. Very difficult. The next morning began with the usual routine. Up at 6 a.m., feeding Micah, a quick cup of coffee while the baby cooed in his bouncer. Donovan had left for work early without even having breakfast. Veronica emerged from her room closer to 10, wearing a silk robe with perfectly styled hair, as if she'd slept in a 5-star hotel rather than a guest room. "Good morning, sweetie," she chirped, heading toward the coffee maker. "Where's my coffee?" "The one Donovan asked you to buy." "Good morning." Kira nodded, changing Micah's diaper on the changing table. "I haven't been to the store yet. I haven't had a chance with Micah." Her mother-in-law pursed her lips in displeasure, her face instantly adopting an expression of offended virtue. "Strange. I thought a husband's request was law to a wife. Oh well, I'll make do with tea today." She poured herself hot water and sat at the table, pointedly ignoring her daughter-in-law. Kira pretended not to notice the subtle jab. She was already used to the fact that her every action or inaction was subject to immediate judgment. Finishing with Micah, She dressed him in a warm jumpsuit and prepared for a walk. "Where are you going?" Veronica called out. "To the park with Micah. I'll stop by for your coffee too." "Hold on." The mother-in-law rose. "Let me dress him. That cap you put on him is too thin. It's windy out. You'll make the baby sick." "It's fine. A little fresh air never hurt anyone." "The mother-in-law knows better," Veronica snapped. "I raised 2 children." Kira stayed silent. Arguing was pointless. Outside, of course, she changed her son's cap, burying the mother-in-law's prickly creation at the bottom of the stroller. Strolling through the park, she thought about how subtly Veronica was taking over more and more space in their lives. She was already deciding what they would eat for dinner, what time the baby would be bathed, even what clothes he should wear. And Donovan just waved it off. "Mom means well. Don't argue with her. It's not worth the trouble." After the walk, Kira put Micah to sleep in his crib and decided to air out the nursery. She cracked open the window, which faced the patio. The weather was wonderful, smelling of spring and fresh leaves. A few minutes later, she returned to the room to check on her son and froze in the doorway. The air distinctly smelled of tobacco. The scent was coming from the patio. Kira peeked out. Veronica was standing with her back to her, happily taking a drag from a thin cigarette and blowing the smoke directly toward the open nursery window. "Veronica!" Kira exclaimed, unable to stop herself. Her mother-in-law jumped and turned around. There wasn't a shadow of embarrassment on her face. "What is it? Why are you shouting? You'll wake the baby. You're smoking right by the nursery window." Kira tried to speak calmly, but her voice trembled. "All the smoke is coming into the room." "Oh, come on." The mother-in-law dismissed her with a wave. "The patio is big. It'll air out. Honestly, you're such a delicate flower. Back in my day, we lived in crowded starter homes. You could hang a hat on the smoke in the hallway, and no one got sick. We all grew up healthy." She demonstratively took another deep drag and flicked the butt down onto the flower bed beneath the window. "Please don't do that again," Kira pleaded, feeling anger boil inside her. "Micah is still tiny. Smoke is bad for him. What's one little cigarette going to do to him?" Veronica scoffed. "You exaggerate everything. You young mothers always treat your children like they're made of glass." She walked past Kira into the kitchen, leaving a trail of acrid smoke behind her. Kira rushed into the nursery and flung the window wide open. The room needed to be aired out immediately. She looked at the sleeping Micah. He was frowning slightly in his sleep, snuffling anxiously. Her heart squeezed with fear and helplessness. That evening, when Donovan returned from work, Kira decided to talk to him. She waited until her mother-in-law went to watch her favorite show and approached her husband, who, as usual, was sitting on the sofa with his laptop. "Donovan, we need to talk about your mom." He sighed, leaning back wearily. "Kira, I worked all day. I'm tired. Can we not do this now?" "No now," she insisted. She was smoking on the patio today, and all the smoke went into Micah's room. "So what?" Donovan shrugged. "She wasn't smoking in the room itself." "Donovan, you don't get it." Kira felt tears welling up. "It's dangerous for his health. He's so tiny. He could develop lung problems, allergies." "Stop being so dramatic," he interrupted. "Nothing serious is going to happen from one time. Mom is an adult. She can't just quit a 30-year habit at the snap of a finger. You need to be more understanding." He spoke so calmly, so casually, as if the issue were merely his mother forgetting to turn off the bathroom light. "But he's our son." Her voice broke into a shout. "Don't you care?" "Of course I care." He raised his voice too. "But my mother is family too. She came here to help us. And instead of gratitude, you grill her and lecture her. She already complained to me that you're picking on her. I'm picking on her? Kira couldn't believe her ears. I'm just asking her not to poison our child. You know what? Donovan slammed his laptop shut. You two figure it out. I don't want to be caught between the two of you. You're both important to me. Just find a way to get along. With those words, he got up and left for the kitchen. Kira was left alone in the middle of the living room. Tears streamed down her cheeks. She felt utterly betrayed. The man who had promised to be her rock was simply washing his hands of the problem, leaving her alone to deal with his mother. That evening, Kira considered for the first time that Donovan loved his mother more than her, more than their son. The thought was terrifying, and she tried to push it away, blaming it on postpartum exhaustion and hormones. But a cold seed of doubt had already been planted deep in her soul. Late that night, when everyone was asleep, Kira went into the kitchen for a glass of water. The faint smell of tobacco smoke lingered in the air again. She walked to the window. An ashtray, an ordinary coffee mug with a couple of cigarette butts in it, sat on the windowsill, hidden behind the curtains. So Veronica had been smoking right here in the kitchen with the window cracked open while they slept. Kira silently emptied the butts into the trash, washed the mug, and put it back. She wouldn't say anything to either of them. But from that moment on, she would be on guard. A war had been declared, albeit a silent one, and in this war, she would fight for her son alone. A week passed, filled with quiet, draining resistance. Veronica continued to smoke in secret, and Kira kept finding traces of her transgressions, cigarette butts hidden under a layer of vegetable peels in the trash, a faint smell of smoke in the bathroom. She stopped making comments, simply airing out the apartment and trying to keep Micah away from her mother-in-law. Donovan, seeing no open conflict, was in a complacent mood. See, he'd say. I told you two would get along. It just took time. Kira offered a strained smile in response. She knew this wasn't peace, it was the calm before the storm. Then the thing she feared most happened. One morning, Micah woke up with a raspy, barking cough. He was struggling to breathe, his little chest heaving with effort. Panic gripped Kira. She immediately called a pediatrician from a private clinic, distrusting the general practitioner who dismissed everything with, "It's nothing serious. It will pass." The pediatrician, a kind older woman named Dr. Olivia Reed, arrived within an hour. She listened to Micah's lungs, examined his throat, and asked Kira questions. "Does anyone in the house smoke?" she asked, her gaze turning stern. "Yes," Kira answered honestly. "My mother-in-law." "Where does she smoke?" "On the patio, in the kitchen. I asked her not to, but—" Dr. Reed sighed heavily. "The boy is developing obstructive bronchitis. For a 6-month-old, that's very serious. His airways are still very narrow, and any irritant, especially tobacco smoke, can cause swelling and spasms." "What should I do?" Kira whispered, her hands turning ice-cold. "First, you must immediately and completely eliminate all contact with smoke. None on the patio, none out the window. The smoker must go outside, and after returning, wash their hands and change their clothes before approaching the child. Second, here's a prescription. We'll start nebulizer treatments. If there's no improvement within 2 days, or if it gets worse, call an ambulance immediately. He may need to go to the hospital." The words hospital and ambulance sounded like a death sentence. When the doctor left, Kira sat over her crying son's crib, feeling a potent mix of fear, anger, and despair. Her small, defenseless boy was suffering because of an adult woman's selfishness and stubbornness. That evening, a serious confrontation took place. Kira gathered both Donovan and Veronica in the living room. Without emotion, trying to speak as calmly as possible, she repeated the doctor's words. "Therefore, as of today, smoking is completely banned in our apartment. If you need to smoke, Veronica, Please go outside. Her mother-in-law listened with a stony face. When Kira finished, she theatrically clutched her hand to her heart. So you're saying I'm to blame for the baby's illness? Her voice trembled with offense. I'm only relaying the doctor's words, Kira answered firmly. Tobacco smoke is a powerful allergen and irritant for an infant. What nonsense! Veronica scoffed. People have smoked all their lives, and children grew up healthy. This is all made up by your newfangled doctors just to squeeze more money out of you. Donnie, you remember Uncle Cole, our neighbor? He smoked like a train, and his daughter was the picture of health. Donovan, who had been silent until then, looked over at Kira. Kira, maybe you shouldn't be so absolute. It's hard for Mom to run outside every time, especially in the evening. Her legs hurt. Donovan, we're talking about our son's health. Kira felt herself losing control. Did you hear what the doctor said? Bronchitis. The hospital. No, this stops now. I forbid smoking in this house. I am his mother, and I am responsible for my child. She looked directly into her mother-in-law's eyes. Veronica's gaze was cold and angry. Unconcealed triumph flickered in it. She'd gotten what she wanted. She'd provoked an open conflict in which Donovan was once again taking her side. Fine, the mother-in-law said, surprisingly calm as she stood up. Have it your way, daughter-in-law. Since you're the boss around here, I won't interfere with your healing process. She left for her room, slamming the door loudly. Well, there you go. Look what you've done, Donovan said with reproach. You hurt Mom's feelings. Now she'll be upset all night. And I'll be sitting by our son's crib all night, listening to him choke on his cough. Kira cut back, and she went into the nursery. The night was a nightmare. Micah barely slept. The cough racked his little chest. Every 2 hours, Kira gave him nebulizer treatments, holding him in her arms, trying to comfort him. Donovan slept on the living room sofa to rest before work. A couple of times, he peered into the nursery sleepily and asked, "How are you two doing?" Kira had a terrible dream. She was in a dark, smoke-filled maze and couldn't find the way out. And somewhere far away, her son was crying. She woke up to that crying. Micah was coughing again. Kira picked him up. He was burning up. The thermometer read 101.3 degrees Fahrenheit. She rushed into the living room. Donovan, wake up. Micah has a fever. He's worse. Call an ambulance, he mumbled without opening his eyes. I'm scared, Kira whispered. Don't be. I'm with you. He rolled over onto his other side and started snoring again. Kira stood in the middle of the room, looking at her sleeping husband, the man who had promised to be there in sickness and in health. At that moment, she felt a chilling loneliness. She was alone in this fight. Absolutely alone. With trembling hands, she dialed 911. 15 minutes later, she and Micah were on their way to the hospital. Donovan never woke up, and Veronica didn't even leave her room. The hospital corridors smelled of antiseptic and anxiety. Kira and Micah were admitted to an isolation room in the pediatric unit. The diagnosis was confirmed: acute obstructive bronchitis. The next few days turned into an endless cycle of procedures, shots, IVs, and nebulizer treatments. Micah cried from pain and fear, and Kira cried with him, feeling guilty that she hadn't been able to protect him. Donovan visited the next day, looking sheepish. What did the doctor say? He asked. She said that a couple more days of second-hand smoke exposure and he could have had pneumonia, Kira replied flatly. Donovan paled. I'm sorry, he said quietly. I didn't think it was that serious. I talked to Mom. She's really upset. She's crying. She promised she won't smoke in the apartment anymore. I don't believe her, Kira cut back. Kira, please don't be like this. She really regrets it. He tried to hug her, but she pushed him away. I don't have time for this right now. I need to be with my son. Donovan stood there indecisively for a moment longer, then left, leaving behind a bitter feeling of disappointment. His apology felt rehearsed, and his concern for his mother seemed far more genuine than his concern for his son. 5 days later, they were discharged. Micah looked better, the cough was almost gone, but he was weak and cranky. Returning home filled Kira with anxiety. She didn't know what to expect. Veronica met them with feigned warmth. She had cooked dinner, fussed over Micah, and gasped with concern. "Oh, my poor little grandson. And you, daughter-in-law, you look so thin." "Kira, forgive me, an old fool," she said that evening when they were alone in the kitchen. "I truly didn't mean to hurt my grandson. Not another cigarette in the house, I swear." Her eyes were full of tears, and Kira almost believed her. Perhaps her grandson's illness really had affected her. Perhaps she had realized her guilt. The next few days, peace reigned in the house. The mother-in-law genuinely didn't smoke in the apartment. She went outside, just as Kira had asked. Donovan became more attentive, helping with Micah. In the evenings, they even watched movies together like they used to. Kira began to hope that the crisis was over, that they could fix everything. But one day, while unpacking groceries, she dropped an orange and it rolled under the kitchen cabinet. Reaching for it, Kira felt something hard with her hand. It was a flat metal box. She struggled to pull it out. It was a cigarette case, antique silver with a monogram. Kira opened it. Inside lay 3 thin cigarettes, her mother-in-law's favorite brand. Her heart dropped. She hasn't quit. She just got sneakier. She was hiding cigarettes, smoking somewhere in secret. But where? There was no smell in the bathroom. None on the patio either. Kira began her own small investigation. She started listening for sounds, sniffing for smells. And one night, waking up to Micah's cry, she went to the kitchen for a bottle and heard a quiet rustling sound from her mother-in-law's room. The door was slightly ajar. Kira peeked through the gap. Veronica was sitting on the bed with her back to the door. In her hand, she held what looked like a vape pen, blowing clouds of vapor out the open window. A chill ran through Kira. Vapes. They barely smell, but the vapor is no less harmful to the lungs than regular smoke. That's why I couldn't smell it. Her mother-in-law had simply changed tactics. The next day, Kira decided to confirm her suspicions. When Veronica went to the store, Kira slipped into her room. She felt awful rooting through someone else's things, but maternal instinct was stronger. In a dresser drawer under a stack of linen, she found what she was looking for, a charger and several bottles of e-liquid. The flavors were fruity, cherry, apple. They could easily mask any characteristic tobacco smell. That evening, she tried to talk to Donovan again. "I found a vape pen in your mom's room. She's smoking it in her room at night." "So what?" Donovan didn't even look away from his computer. "Those aren't regular cigarettes. They're harmless." "Who told you that?" Kira was stunned by his naivety. "They have nicotine, propylene glycol, and flavorings. That vapor is just as dangerous for Micah as smoke is." "Oh, Kira, don't start." He waved his hand in irritation. "You're looking for another reason to pick on Mom. She's already walking on eggshells, afraid to say the wrong thing. She promised not to smoke, and she's not smoking regular cigarettes. What more do you want?" "I want no smoking in this house, period." Kira almost screamed. "None. Can you get that through to your mother? And can you stop being such a witch?" he snapped back. "I'm tired of your constant complaints." The conversation had reached another dead end. Kira realized that Donovan wasn't just unwilling to help her, he was consciously choosing his mother's side, ignoring the danger to his own son. Her trust in her husband, already undermined, was now dissolving with every passing day. She decided to take a different approach. Since words didn't work, she needed undeniable proof. The next day, she went to an electronics store and bought the smallest covert camera she could find. That evening, while her mother-in-law was taking a bath, Kira quietly set it up in her room, camouflaged within a stack of books on a shelf. Her hands trembled and her heart pounded with the realization of what she was doing. She was spying on her husband's mother in her own home. But what choice did she have? How else could she prove she was right? How else could she make them understand that she wasn't hysterical, but a mother fighting for her child's health? She felt she was crossing a line after which there would be no returning to her former life. But her former life was already gone. There was only this quiet, cold war where all means were justified. The camera footage was a genuine shock to Kira. She expected to see her mother-in-law secretly vaping. But what she saw exceeded her worst fears. Veronica wasn't just smoking. She was living a double life, full of lies and contempt for them. The very first night's recording showed the mother-in-law, after waiting for everyone to fall asleep, pulling out of her secret spot not only the vape but also regular cigarettes. She sat by the open window and chain-smoked, flicking the ashes into the same coffee mug Kira had found earlier. But that was just the beginning. The camera captured her phone conversations with a friend, a certain Zenaida. "Can you believe it, Zena? That hysterical woman has turned this place into a concentration camp," Veronica complained, taking a drag. "Smoking bothers her. You see, her baby is so delicate. But the fact that I'm a wreck because of her and my heart is giving out? That's nothing. My Donnie is such a lamb. Whatever that mouse tells him, he does. She's got the boy wrapped around her finger. But don't worry, I'll give her a run for her money. She'll dance to my tune yet." Kira listened to the recording with a sinking heart. A mouse. Hysterical. So that's what her mother-in-law really thought of her. And her complaints about her heart were just an act for her son. But the most damning clip was recorded the next day. Veronica was talking on the phone with Donovan. Kira recognized her husband's voice even though it sounded muffled. "Son, I can't take this anymore," the mother-in-law said in a tearful voice. "Kira is absolutely tormenting me today. She claimed that my perfume gives Micah an allergy and demanded that I stop wearing it. Can you believe it? I told her they were expensive French perfumes, and she said, 'You smell like an old chest of drawers.'" Kira went cold. She had said nothing of the sort. She hadn't even mentioned the perfume. It was a brazen, monstrous lie. "Mom, don't worry about it," Donovan's voice came from the speaker. "You know she has postpartum depression. That's why she's nitpicking everything." Postpartum depression? Veronica sobbed. "It's not depression. It's a mean streak. She simply hates me and is turning you against me. I feel like I'm losing you, son." "Mom, don't cry." Donovan's voice became soft and comforting. "You will never lose me. I'll talk to her tonight. I'll put her in her place." Kira turned off the recording. She was shaking. So this was how it worked. Her mother-in-law was methodically and coldly destroying her reputation in her husband's eyes, inventing non-existent slights, playing the victim, acting out dramas. And Donovan, her husband, her team, believed her every word. He didn't just believe her, he was ready to put his own wife in her place to appease his mother. The scale of the betrayal was much deeper than she could have imagined. It wasn't just about the cigarettes. It was about total disrespect, the insidious game her mother-in-law was playing behind her back, and Donovan's blind, infantile devotion to his mother. She played the recording further and saw what finally killed all hope in her. During the day, while Kira and Micah were out for a walk, Veronica went into their bedroom. The camera in her room partially captured the hallway. The mother-in-law opened Kira's closet and started sifting through her things, wrinkling her nose in disgust. She pulled out a new silk dress that Kira had bought before pregnancy and never worn. She held it up to herself, twirled in front of the mirror, then threw it on the floor and stepped on it with her heel. Then she took a bottle of Kira's favorite perfume from the vanity, the same one Donovan had given her for their wedding anniversary, and poured half of it down the bathroom sink. Kira watched the screen, unable to breathe. This was not just a petty, spiteful act. It was an act of pure, unadulterated hatred. Why? What did I ever do to her? Why do I deserve this treatment? The answer was simple and awful. Simply for existing. For taking her son away. For becoming the lady of the house. Kira saved all the video files onto a flash drive and hid it. Now she had proof. But what should she do with it? Show Donovan? Start a huge fight? She imagined the scene. She shows him the video of his mother pouring out her perfume. And what would he say? Mom got carried away. She was stressed. Or worse yet, he would accuse Kira of staging it all herself to defame his saintly mother. No, she needed to act differently. More subtly, more strategically. Her enemy was cunning and manipulative, which meant Kira had to become the same.